Hello everyone. So today I'm going to talk about cultural studies. Here I'm going to talk about the historical background of cultural studies, and in my next video I'm going to talk about the major theorists of cultural studies. So let's start. What is cultural studies? Cultural studies is an interdisciplinary field of academic inquiry that explores the ways in which culture, including literature, art, media, language, and everyday practices, influence and it influenced by society. So, what is cultural studies? It is an interdisciplinary field of academic inquiry that explores the ways in which culture, including literature, art, and media, and also language, and our everyday experience is influenced. So it seeks to understand how culture shapes our identities, values, and structure of power. So in my next slide you can see that cultural studies came from Marxist theory. So it came from Marxist theory, and Frankfurt School also involved in cultural studies, and Raymond William also a Marxist theorist and also a major theorist of cultural studies. So therefore cultural studies always talks about the power structure, how it influence our text, our literature, our art. Cultural studies often examines issues related to identity, representation, media, popular culture, and its impact of globalization of cultural exchange. So it talks about media, popular culture, high culture, low culture, and its impact on globalization of a cultural exchange. So let's see more about it. It emerged as an it emerged as a response to the limitations of traditional academics. So it emerged as a response to the limitation of traditional academics and disciplines, and aims to provide critical and nuanced analysis of the complex relationship between culture and society. So it emerged as the response to the limitation of traditional academics disciplines, and aims to provide critical thinking, critical analysis, nuance to the complex relationship between culture and society. So what is the relationship between culture and society is talked about it. So here is the picture of Brigham University. You can understand why it is important. In my next slide, I'm going to talk about that why this university is important, playing an important role of cultural studies. Cultural studies first emerged in the United Kingdom in UK, primarily in Brigham University. So note down this point. In UGC Net it is asked twice, and its early development can be associated with the work of Brigham Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. So it is also important. It is also asked in UGC Net. What is the full form of CCCS? It is, note down, Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. While it's difficult to attribute its founding to a single individual, or several figures and historical factors contributed to its development, so here we are going to see the historical background of this theory. So what happened in 1950s and 1960s? Cultural studies began to take shape in 1950s and 1960s in response to changing social and cultural landscape of post-World War II in Britain. Scholars at the University of Brigham, including Richard Hogarth, so he is the major propagandist of cultural studies, Richard Hogarth, please note down his name. So including Richard Hogarth initiated the study of popular culture and influence of mass culture. So he studied on popular culture and influence of mass media. Then what happened in 1964? The pivotal movement in the establishment of cultural studies came in 1964, including founding of CCCS under the leadership of Stuart Hall. So after Richard Hogarth, he was the second leader of the university, Stuart Hall. So you can expect this type of question, that who came after whom. First Richard Hogarth, then Stuart Hall. The CCCS served as a key hub for interdisciplinary research and fostering the development of cultural studies as an academic field. So, what is the importance of Stuart Hall? Stuart Hall, often regarded as one of the central figures in the development of cultural studies, played a crucial role in shaping its direction, and his work on media representation, identity, and encoding decoding. So his important concept, encoding decoding, has been instrumental in defining the field. So he was an important figure, important central figure of cultural study. He works on media representation, identity, and encoding decoding in mass media. If you want to learn the subject mass media, you have to know about Stuart Hall, because he develop the concept of how we encoded the message and how the message was decoded by the receiver. So he coined the term encoding and decoding. Then Stuart Hall identified three originating core texts in the field of cultural studies. So they are important because Stuart Hall identified these three core texts in the field of cultural studies. What are they? Richard Hogarth's Uses of Literacy. Please note down the publication date, because it is very much important for the exam point of view. So Richard Hogarth's The Uses of Literacy, which published in 1957. It also asked in chronological order. Okay, then Raymond Williams' Culture and Society, in which published in 1958. Then Wrong Revolution by Raymond Williams, which published in 1961. Then E.P. Thompson's Making of the English Working Class, which published in 1963. So which are these texts? First is Richard Hogarth's The Uses of Literacy, which published in 1957. Then Raymond Williams' Culture and Society, 1958. The Wrong Revolution, 1961. And E.P. Thompson's The Making of the English Working Class, which published in 1963. Then let's know the historical background. Marxist and neo-Marxist influence of cultural studies. In cultural studies, the early days of cultural studies were heavily influenced by Marxist and neo-Marxist ideas, with the literary scholar like Raymond Williams, E.P. Thompson examining the relationship between culture, class, and society. So they are the major propagandists of Marxist theory also, and they emphasizing that how they examining the how the relationship between culture, society, and class came in this field, because they are belonging from the you can say the working class culture. So in cultural studies, first time these academics like Richard Hogarth, E.P. Thompson, and Raymond Williams, they belong from working class culture, and they studied on working class. Like E.P. Thompson, you know the text, uh, the Making of English Working Class. So they are belonging from working class, and they talk about working class, and they want to differentiate that how high culture and low culture came, and how its impact on our society, and how its impact on our literature, art, and other things. So it talk about everything. Okay, so interdisciplinary approach of cultural studies adopted an interdisciplinary approach drawing on insight from various fields including sociology, anthropology, literary studies, media studies, and more. So if you asked me that what is cultural studies. Cultural studies is everything: how you live, how you live, and how you engage in your life in various field, and how your everyday life is going. Everything is important in cultural studies, because everything is part of your cultural studies, that which pen you are using, which dress you are wearing, which TV shows you are watching. Everything is the part of the cultural studies, because it represents you, it represents your class, it represents that in which culture you are belonging, and represents what is the demand of the society, what is the demand of the new generation. So everything is studies in cultural studies. So everything is cultural studies. Now there is no different, or nothing is separated here. This approach allowed for a holistic understanding of the role of culture in society. So everything is interdisciplinary. Challenging high and low culture, as I told you that they are belonging from working class, so they challenge that what is high culture and what is low culture. So they challenging the high and low culture dichotomy. And cultural studies challenge the traditional distinction between high and low culture, recognizing that all forms of culture, including popular culture, were worthy of studies and critical analysis. So they said that the elite class always said that these popular culture, like the folk songs, or some popular art or hip hop song, they said that this is low culture. But they said that there is no high culture or low culture. So they just they challenge the distinction between high and low culture, and recognizing that all forms of culture, including popular culture, are also worthy, it is also respectable of studies and critical analysis. So you cannot say that these are not art, these are not literature, because you have to also analysis these culture, because they are popular, they are more famous than your elite culture or high culture. As Arnold said that high culture is the best culture, and high culture is the part of cultural culture, the study of culture. Because if you want to see a culture, if you see the Indian culture, you have to focus on the elite culture, because these are supreme, these are garnished, or these are the real culture. You don't have to see the lower culture or the culture of working class, but they are saying that you have to also see the working class culture, the low culture, the song which the working class culture are playing or singing or listening. You also have to analyze this, because they are also worthy. So they that's different, challenging that differentiate, challenging the distinction of high and low culture. Then post-colonial and feminist perspective. So post-colonial and feminist perspective also approach came there. And over time cultural studies incorporated post-colonial feminist perspectives, acknowledging the importance of issues related to colonialism, gender, race, and identity. So then post-colonial theory and feminist theory also came, and it also um, give their perspectives in cultural studies. Then globalization, you know that globalization, what is globalization and its identity. As globalization accelerated in the later half of the 20th century, of cultural studies provided a framework to understand how cultural intersect, influence each other, how individuals negotiate their identities is an in an increasingly globalized world. So there is the world is globalized now, there is no boundary. As you know that Edward said that the culture become hybrid now. So there is no, you cannot differentiate between the Indian culture and British culture. You cannot differentiate Western culture and Indian culture, because they are now mixed together. So the influence of globalization also started in the field of cultural studies. Then, while the term cultural studies was coined, in the historical roots of the field can be traced back to this development in post-World War Britain. So, while the term cultural studies was coined by Richard Hogarth, so I forget to mention that sorry So Richard Hogarth first used the term cultural studies in 1964 in founding of the Central of Contemporary Cultural Studies. So he used the term cultural studies. So here it is said that while the term cultural studies was coined later, the historical roots of the field can be traced back to this development in post-World War in Britain. Cultural studies interdisciplinary and critical approach has since expanded beyond UK, and continues to be a dynamic and influential field of academic inquiry worldwide. So then here is a picture of Richard Hogarth. I'm going to talk about Richard Hogarth and then Raymond Williams and E.P. Thompson in my next video. So I hope you will like the introductory video of cultural studies, and if you have any queries, you can write in the comment section. And thank you for your time.